If we want to graph net exports, we need to take exports minus imports. So you'll notice that there's a column here on the far right called net exports. And we can calculate the numbers in that column by taking our exports minus our imports. So notice that when income is 0, exports are 100 and imports are 40. So our net exports are 60. So we're bringing in $60 more worth of goods, or we're bringing in $60 to our country, remember, because the goods are going out. So we're bringing in $60 more than we are sending out to pay for those goods we're bringing in. When income is 100, exports are $100, so we're making $100 off the stuff we're selling to other countries, but we're importing, we're bringing in $50 worth of goods. So in terms of the money we're making, exports minus imports, we're making $50. And we can keep going all the way until our exports are 100 and our imports are 120. And at this point, the imports are more than the exports, so our net exports are a negative 20. What this means is that we're bringing in $100 from selling goods to other countries, but we're buying $120 worth of goods from other countries. So on net, the money is leaving our country. $100 is coming in, $120 is going out, so minus $20 is our net exports. We can graph our net exports. So let's go and create a graph here. And so let's look at when our income, so this is national income here, Y. When national income is 0, our net exports are 60. When national income is 100, our net exports are 50. When national income is 200, our net exports are 40. And we can keep going. When our income is 600, our net exports are 0. When our income is 800, our net exports are minus 20. So this is our exports minus imports graph. Notice that it shows us, exports minus imports, that we have autonomous net exports of 60. So when there is $0 of income, we are bringing in $60 from selling goods to other countries. That's $60 more we're bringing in than the money that's going out. Now, as our income increases, notice the net exports go down. Okay, we have a negative slope. And that's because as our income increases, we import more, which means we're bringing more goods in from other countries and that money is going out. If the money is going out, okay, then that's why we have the negative there. The money is leaving, and we see more and more money leaving as our income increases. Well, let's find the slope of this line. And so to find slope, it's rise over run. And to do that calculation then, we're going to need to look at where we started and where we finished. So we're going to look at the change in net exports divided by the change in income. So net exports go from 60 to so they go from 60 here to a negative 20. So to find the slope, we end up at negative 20, and then we subtract the 60 we started at. Then we divide that by the change in income, and income went from 0 to 800, so 800 minus 0. And so we get negative 80 divided by 800. So our slope, negative 80 divided by 100, okay, is a negative 0.1. So if we're looking at our net exports function, it's x minus im is equal to 60 minus 0.1 times y. And remember, this y is a placeholder, so we could actually find out what is the net exports when income is equal to 300. Okay, we would take 300 times 0.1. So we get 60 minus 30. And we find the net exports when our income is 300, net exports are 30. So the net exports formula then is x minus im is equal to 60 minus 0.1 y. And that y, of course, is a placeholder for any income level. Now this 0.1 y is your marginal propensity to import. The only difference between the slope here in the net exports formula and the slope in the imports formula is here it's listed as negative. And it's listed as negative here because the money is leaving the country. So we can still tell from this the marginal propensity to import is 0.1. For every dollar of income, we spend 10 cents on imports. Well, now that we have our net exports function, now we want to know what would cause this net exports function to shift up or shift down. So what would change autonomous net exports? So we want to look at the determinants of net exports. What would cause the net exports function to shift up or down? The first one is a change in domestic prices compared to other countries. So let's think this through. Let's suppose that prices in foreign countries went up. So if goods are now more expensive in the US than they are in Canada, then what does that mean? Well, that means that Americans are now going to buy from us instead because we're cheaper. Well, if Americans are buying from us, then our exports will increase. And if American goods are now more expensive, we're going to buy more stuff from home, and our imports will decrease, which means x minus im will go up because the exports is getting higher, and imports, which is the amount we're subtracting, if it's less, we're subtracting less from the number, and so that's going to make the overall number increase. And that's going to then shift up the net exports function. The second thing that would change net exports is a change in the exchange rate. So let's assume that the Canadian dollar strengthens. So if the Canadian dollar appreciates or strengthens in value, then when Americans are looking to buy from us, we are now more expensive. So if the Canadian dollar is stronger, then their money doesn't go as far. So exports are going to go down. At the same time, because the Canadian dollar is stronger, our money goes further when it comes to buying American goods. So we're going to import more. And that means that our net exports, if exports go down and imports go up, net exports will go down. Okay. So if the Canadian dollar strengthens, net exports fall. If the Canadian dollar depreciates or weakens, net exports will go up. If the price in the foreign country goes up, net exports goes up. If prices in Canada go up, then that means that foreigners are going to buy less from us. We're going to buy more from them, and net exports will then go down. So we've looked here at two factors that will impact net exports. Now we got two more here. So let's look at a change in income levels abroad. Suppose that foreign income increases. Americans get richer. If Americans get richer, what does that do to our trade? Well, if Americans are richer, they're going to buy more from us. Now, there's no impact here on imports because imports are the Canadians. And it's not our income that changed, it was the American income. So only exports changes here, exports increase, and therefore X minus IM also increases. Now, that being said, if foreign income decreases, if the US experiences a recession, for example, their income decreases, they're going to buy less of our goods, so exports will fall, and net exports will fall as well. The last one here is a change in foreign tastes. So what if foreigners like Canadian goods more? So if foreigners like Canadian goods, then they're going to want more of our goods and exports are going to increase. And if exports increase, X minus IM will increase and the graph will shift upwards. So let's look at an example, China. Let's say that the economy we're looking at, the exports and imports, are for China. Well, a number of goods that have been coming out of China have been found to have toxic substances in them. So, for example, jewelry that's sold at Ardene and Aldo within Canada, that jewelry came from China, and it's found to have cadmium in it, which is toxic if children put it in their mouths. There's also been reports of lead in children's toys and melamine, which is a plastic in baby's milk. So when you hear about all these quality issues coming out of China, what does that do for the amount of goods from that country you want? So it makes your taste for their product decrease. And so what happens is that if we're looking at the economy in China, then they're not able to export as much, which impacts their net exports, and of course impacts C plus I plus G plus X minus IM. And if that decrease in exports, because people don't want their products, is enough, it can actually change spending in the economy, and it can have an impact on the size of the economy. So if foreigners like your goods, then exports will increase. If foreigners don't like your goods, then exports and net exports will decrease. All right, so we've talked about C plus I plus G plus X minus IM. So we found a formula for C, we found a formula for I, and a formula for G, and now a formula for net exports. We can then find aggregate expenditures, which is C plus I plus G plus X minus IM, by adding up the formulas. So let's add up all of the numbers that don't contain Y, 5 and 75 and 160 and 60, and we get 300. Then we add the numbers that do contain a Y. So we have a 0.6 and we have a minus 0.1 Y. So we get 0.5 Y. So our aggregate expenditure function is 300 plus 0.5 Y, which is the same formula we found in the first video looking at aggregate expenditures. On a graph, we took C plus I plus G, and now that we add X minus IM, notice that it's not simply a shift up, but that we've actually changed the slope. And we've changed the slope because we have our MPC and our MPM. For every dollar of income, 60 cents is spent on goods and services, but notice that 10 cents of that 60 cents that we're spending on goods and services is foreign-made goods and services. So it changes the slope of our line to be 0.5 to represent the fact that for every dollar of income, 50 cents is spent on our economy. So we have to take the amount we're spending on goods and services and subtract those goods and services that are from another country. So we get aggregate expenditures are 300 plus 0.5 y.